Hi everyone. Today I'm going to be working through the last 4 chapters of the Job Hunt book. So I'm just going to be reading through each chapter, going through difficult words, trying to explain them a little bit better, and to then ask you a few questions at the back at the end just to check that you understood the story, what was going on, the characters, and so forth. So we are starting with the chapter The Inventory, which starts on page 94. So if you want to try and find that page. So this book is The Job Hunt that we have been reading for the last few weeks. If you don't have it, please let us know and we can get it to you. And yeah, we'll just carry on where we left off from last week. I hope everyone's doing okay. Okay, so page 94, and the chapter is called Inventory. Mr. Fremont showed Kim how to take inventory. It seemed like it would be very easy to do. Just count the cans and write down the quantity for each one, said Mr. Fremont. What's quantity mean? Asked Kurt. A quantity is a number, Kim explained. When you write down a quantity, you write down how many of the thing you have. Kim counted the cans of peas. 1, 2, 3. How many are there? Kurt asked eagerly. Hush, said Kim. You made me lose count. I have to start over. Kim counted the cans of peas. Then she counted the cans of beans. On to the next page now, page 96. There are so many kinds of beans, Kurt said. There must be 100 kinds. I see baked beans, butter beans, pinto beans, green beans, white beans, and kidney beans. Every time Kurt said something, Kim lost count. Kurt, I need some peace and quiet here. If you don't mind. This is not quite as easy as it looks. If you keep yapping, I will never get the quantities right. Kurt sat quietly for a while and Kim counted everything carefully. Kurt lay down on his tummy. Golly, he said, someone needs to sweep under these shelves. It's very dusty under there. He traced a smiley face in the dust. Hush, Kurt. If you will just sit there quietly, then I can count these cans and maybe we can do something fun. I need to focus on the counting. Oops, sorry, I just lost my page. There. So now we're on page 98. Next page. Kim counted cans of cherries and jars of jelly while Kurt sat quietly. At last, she finished. Let's go find Mr. Fremont, she said. They found him at his desk. I saw Kim work, Mr. Fremont, Kurt said. She counted everything carefully, and I think she got the quantity just right. Quantity, said Kim, with a T. Mr. Fremont looked at the numbers Kim had jotted down. You did a fine job, he said. I counted those cans before lunch today, so I know how many there are. Your count is just the same as my count. That means you have passed this test. There is just one test left. Okay, said Kim, let's do it. Okay, so that's the end of the inventory chapter. Just to give you a bit of context, just in case you haven't managed to catch up with last week's reading session, Kim and Kurt are looking for a job for Kim, and they have gone into this grocery store, and Mr. Fremont is the owner of this grocery store, and he is considering giving her a job. And what he's got her to do is an inventory, which is just the quantity of items of goods that they have in stock. So that's why she was counting all the beans. That's why she was counting all the peas, just to make a list of how many of each thing they have. So that's the inventory. And so he's given her these tests just to see if she is capable of working for him. and she seems to be doing quite well, doesn't she? So I did discuss what inventory was last week, but I've just said it again there. So it's just the number of each item, and Kim is making a note of how many of each item, just to keep a record of it. Fab. And then so quantity just means how many, basically. Eagerly. This is on the first page of the inventory chapter, so on page 94 still. The word eagerly, this is quite a tricky word, and I'll just read the sentence there. It's, how many are there? Kurt asked eagerly. Eagerly means you're strongly wanting something, so he's keen, he's expectant, he's wanting this really badly. So he's saying, how many are there? Kurt asked eagerly. So he's like, how many are there? How many are there? Tell me, tell me, tell me. So he's quite excited about it. He really wants to know the answer. So that is what eagerly means. It's quite a tricky word. But you might have heard it before. It's quite a commonly used word. Okay. Now the next word, well, I suppose this is phrase that I picked up on, that I didn't know what these were, so I thought I'd give it a quick Google search just to see, out of interest mainly because I'd never heard of them before. Pinto beans. So this is page 96, the top of page 96, when Kurt is saying all the different types of beans. So he's saying there must be 100 kinds. I see baked beans, butter beans, pinto beans, green beans, white beans, and kidney beans. So pinto beans are like speckled beans, so they have like little dots on. And they are beans that are popular in the US, so America, and northern Mexico, I believe. Yeah. So I don't know if we use them much here in the UK, because I've personally never heard of them. But a lot of you might have heard of them. Maybe I'm just, maybe I just don't know much about beans. But yeah, so they're just a type of bean that it's used commonly in the US and Mexico, it would seem. Okay, so the next word that I found that might be difficult to understand was yapping. So this is on the same page as the pinto bean, so it's page 96, and it's in the paragraph, Kurt, I need some peace and quiet here, if you don't mind. This is not quite as easy as it looks. If you keep yapping, I will never get the quantities right. So, yapping means talking, so it's just another word for talking. It's quite an informal word to use. And I think Kim is using it here because she's getting quite irritated by Kurt because she's trying to do this counting. She's really trying her best to get it right so she can get this job. But Kurt won't stop talking, so he keeps putting her off the counting. So she's saying, if you keep yapping, I will never get the quantities right. So if you keep talking and putting me off, I'm never going to get it right. So yapping in this context means talking. Okay. Now we have the word carefully, and this is also on page 96, and it's literally just the line underneath yapping. So Kurt sat quietly for a while and Kim counted everything carefully. So this means that she took her time, she tried to avoid any mistakes, she really wanted to get it right. So she wasn't rushing about, she took her time, 1, 2, 3, and she made notes, and it was just to really make sure that she had the numbers right. So she was being careful, she was being really mindful about how she counted, what she counted. So that's what carefully means there. And then in the the line underneath this, so the same page, page 96, Kurt lay down on his tummy. Tummy is quite it's quite a commonly used word for stomach or belly. So if he laid on his tummy, it means he laid down with here on the floor. So he lay down face first, like face down. So he wasn't on his back, he was on his tummy or stomach or belly. So tummy is just another word for stomach or belly. Now another one on page 96, this is a tricky page, this page 96, is the word golly, and it's literally just the next word after tummy. It says, "Golly," he said, "somebody needs to sweep under those shelves. It's very dusty under there." He traced a smiley face in the dust. Sorry, that's these, not those. Somebody needs to sweep under these shelves. So, golly, that means, so that is used to express surprise or delight. So it's like, oh golly, like you took me by surprise. So Kurt here is surprised at the amount of dust underneath the shelves. So he's saying, oh golly, like it could be, oh wow, have you seen that dust? That's what it means. So golly just means that he's really surprised. He's shocked at the dust. Okay, I think that's it for that page, for page 96. So now page 98, difficult words. And this isn't a difficult word, it's just because it's used differently in America and in the UK. So the word jelly here at the top of page 98, it says, Kim counted cans of cherries and jars of jelly while Kurt sat quietly. Jars of jelly. In the UK, jelly means that wobbly, I don't know, just that wobbly dessert thing. It's you get loads of different flavours for it. It goes in trifles, that kind of thing. You can have jelly and ice cream. That's what we see as jelly. But the Americans say jelly to describe jam. So we have, strawberry jam, raspberry jam, we come in little jars that you might put on your toast or have a jam sandwich or something. They say that jam is jelly. So they don't use the word jam in that context, they say jelly. So raspberry jelly, strawberry jelly, they put jelly on toast. So that's all it means there. So it's just a bit confusing in terms of using it in different ways. But I hope I've made that a bit clearer. Okay. Now it's the same page, page 98. So it's about midway down, page 98, the word jotted. So the sentence that it appears in is, Mr. Fremont looked at the numbers Kim had jotted down. A lot of you might know what jotted means. That's great. But for those who don't, it is quite a difficult word. It means written. So if you write something down quickly, you've jotted it down. So you're not taking care to or it's just like quickly write the number 4, or if there were 10 cans of beans, she would write, quickly write 10. It's just so she could get through it efficiently and quickly. So she wasn't really caring about how neat the numbers were, how neat she was writing. It was just making sure that she got it on the paper. So jotted means it was written quickly. Fabulous. Perfect. Now we have the next chapter, and it's called The Tally. And this starts on page 100. So if you'd just like to follow me while I read this chapter through. The Tally, page 100. Mr. Fremont led Kim to the cash register. Let's pretend you already have a job here, he said. Okay, said Kim. Mr. Fremont went and got some things from the shelves and plopped them down into a shopping basket. He selected a jar of peanut butter, a bag of cookies, and a key lime pie. Then he set the basket on the counter next to Kim. "Can you tally up the cost of all this food?" "You bet," said Kim cheerfully. "Do you want me to use the cash register?" "No," said Mr. Fremont. "I want to see if you can do it without the cash register. Let's pretend the cash register is broken, so you have to add up the tally all by yourself." That sounded hard to Kurt. He looked at Kim to see if she looked scared. She did not. So this is page 102 now. Next page. "No problem," said Kim. Kim got a sheet of paper and a pen. She wrote down the cost of each item and then she added it up carefully. When she finished, she said, "Mr. Fremont, should I add the sales tax on top of this?" Kurt looked at Mr. Fremont and saw him break into a big grin. Mr. Fremont's grin seemed to stretch from ear to ear. Kurt could not tell why he was so happy. "Yes," Mr. Fremont said, "we must add in the sales tax." "What is sales tax?" Kurt asked. Mr. Fremont explained, "It's a tax we have to pay to the state to help pay for roads and firemen and that sort of thing." Meanwhile, Kim had finished adding in the tax. When she was finished, Mr. Fremont checked her numbers. So we're now on to page 104. "Wow," said Mr. Fremont, "you added and multiplied perfectly." He held out a hand for Kim to shake and said, "You got yourself a job." "For real?" said Kim. "For real," said Mr. Fremont. "You can start next week." Kurt clapped his hands. "I'm so excited," Kim said. "Well, you should be proud of yourself," said Mr. Fremont. "It's never easy to find a job." "You got that right," Kurt said, sighing loudly. "It took us all day." "Just one day?" Mr. Fremont asked. "I'm impressed. Sometimes it takes a lot longer." "I suppose I got lucky," replied Kim. So now we are on page 106. "Luck is finding a dime on the ground," Mr. Fremont said. "Getting a job is not luck. You had to visit a lot of places and talk to a lot of people, and you had to pass the tests I gave you." Mr. Fremont showed Kim the rest of the store and the warehouse. Then he had her fill out some papers. Mr. Fremont handed Kim 20 bucks for the time she had spent taking inventory and tallying up the costs. Then the two of them shook hands. "Be here at 9 o'clock sharp. Don't be late." "You can count on me, Mr. Fremont. I will be here on time every day." Kim and Kurt went outside. Kurt said, "Way to go, big sis." They slapped hands and did a dance on the sidewalk. Kim got out her cell phone and called her mom, who was at work. "Mom," she said, "I got a job." "Woohoo!" said her mom. So that is the end of the chapter called The Tally. So we'll just go through some difficult words in this chapter. So it starts on page 100, just to let you know again, just if you're trying to find the beginning of it again. Last week I went through the term cash register with you all, but just in case you've forgotten or you didn't understand or maybe you didn't watch last week's episode, a cash register is a machine used in shops that has a drawer for the money and it records the amount of each sale. So if you're going into Tesco or Morrison's or Asda or wherever you shop, and you go to the person at the checkout and you hand them the money that it cost for your groceries, then they put your money into a cash register. So the little drawer that pulls out They put the money in there and it records how much you have given them, how much your sale came to. So that's a cash register. It also adds up the running total of the sale that the person is going to pay. So if the milk was £1, bread was £1, crisps were £1, it would be 1 add 1 add 1 is 3, and then it would continue to add that up at the end, so the person at the checkout didn't have to do much work. So it's really handy. And just a word here on the first page of this chapter, page 100, plopped. That just means put. So Mr. Fremont went and got some things from the shelves and plopped them into a shopping basket. That's just a funny way of saying put. He just put them in the shopping basket. He dropped them in the shopping basket. That's it, really. It's not really a word you'd use in that context. But it's not wrong either, but you could just say put. It's the same thing. Perfect. So then we go to page 102. Yes. And here we've got the phrase sales tax. So this is money that's added to the price of a purchase, which is paid to the government. So Kim here says, so when she finished, she said, Mr. Fremont, should I add the sales tax on top of this? And so it just means that it's money added to the price of the purchase, which is paid to the government. And they actually go on to explain that quite well when they say, when Kurt asks what is sales tax, and Mr. Fremont explained, it's a tax we have to pay to the state to help pay for roads and firemen and that sort of thing. So, if a road needs fixing, the money that it needs comes from sales tax. I think that's the best I can describe it without getting too complicated. Just money that's added on to what you need to pay to help pay for things like roads, policemen, that kind of thing. Fabulous. So let's move on. Page 104 is the next word that I found, and it's called multiplied. So it's the very, very top of page 104. Wow, said Mr. Fremont, you added and multiplied perfectly. So multiplied is when you have a number and you times it by another number. So if you know your times tables, you might have 2 times 2 or 2 multiplied by 2, which gives you 4. So you have 2 times, which gives you 4 because 2, lots of 2 gives you 4. So if you know your times tables, you probably know what multiply means. But if you don't, that's just a quick example there. It's just, and it's the symbol is an X. So a multiplied sign is an X like that. So 2 times 2 equals 4. I think that's the best I can describe that. If you have any problems, there are lots and lots of maths websites, that kind of thing, that can help you understand the word multiplied. Because it is really, really hard to comprehend in your head, and it's hard to explain as well. So because it's not just adding, it's you're timesing groups together, which is quite tricky, but I hope I've explained it well enough there. Now the same page 104 is the word impressed. So it's quite near the bottom and it says, just one day, Mr. Fremont asked, "I'm impressed. Sometimes it takes a lot longer." And this is when they were saying that there was only they'd only been looking for a job for one day. And Mr. Fremont said that he was impressed. So impressed means that he is feeling or showing admiration. He has respect for them for finding a job after only looking for one day. So he admires her, he has respect for her, because as he said, sometimes it takes a lot longer. So he's surprised that it took as little time as it did, because some people can look for weeks and months and not find a job. And she's found one after one day. So that's why he's impressed. He's surprised. He admires how quickly it took. Then at the bottom of page 104 is the sentence, "I suppose I got lucky," replied Kim. Lucky. Luck is a force that causes things to happen that aren't to do with your actions. So in this case, it's a good thing. She's lucky because she found a job after one day. So it's some people believe in luck, some people don't, but it's this force that causes things, in this case a good thing, to happen by chance, and it's not the result of her actions. So Mr. Fremont is saying, well, it must be, he later says, it must be because of your actions, basically. Getting a job is not luck. You had to visit a lot of places and talk to a lot of people, and you had to pass the tests I gave you. So he's saying it's not luck, it is because of your actions. But Kim is saying it isn't because of my actions, I just got lucky. It was by chance. I just happened to come into the shop and find a job and be really good at it. She's just saying it just happened to be that way. It had nothing to do with what she did. So that's what that means. Okay, so next page 106. I've just seen a word there, very top of page 106, the word dime. So that's an American coin. We don't have them here. It's a coin in America, money. And then warehouse. So the sentence is, Mr. Fremont showed Kim the rest of the store and the warehouse. So a warehouse is where all the goods are stored before they're sold. So it might be below the store, it might be a different room that Mr. Fremont stores all of maybe the milk, the bread, the cans, the cakes, everything like that in before he puts them on the shelves to be sold. So not everything so the cans that you see on the shelf aren't always all the shop has. So the grocery store in this case has a warehouse in which they keep the other tins of beans or the other loaves of bread, because it probably can't all fit on the shelf. So they need a big warehouse to store all the food that can't fit on the shelf, and then when there is room on the shelf, they can move it from the warehouse to the shop. Perfect. Then the same page 106. About halfway down, Mr. Fremont handed Kim $20 for the time she had spent taking inventory and tallying up the costs. So bucks, that is just another way of saying dollars in America. So $20, $20. We have quid. So I might say here's £20 or here's 20 quid. So it's kind of the same thing. So they say bucks instead of dollars. It's just a very informal way of saying dollars. Okay. And then we have again, page 106, the sentences. Kurt said, "Way to go, big sis." They slapped hands and did a dance on the sidewalk. Now, I imagine sidewalk has probably come up in this book before because it's the American word for path or pavement, and that's all it is. So if it has come up in the book before and you've had this explanation before, I'm sorry for being so repetitive. But that's all it means. It's just a path or the pavement that pedestrians walk on, that you and I would walk on. Cars drive on the road, we walk on the path, the pavement, the sidewalk. Okay, so now we have the next chapter, which is called The Visit. Page 108. Kim was happy that she had found herself a summer job. "Let's go and visit Mom," she said. "She will be finished teaching by the time we get there." Mrs. Gunter was a math teacher. She taught at a college in Lower Manhattan. Kim held up a hand to hail a cab. A yellow cab screeched to a stop on the side of the street. Kurt and Kim hopped in. "Where to?" asked the driver. Kim told him the address. The cab went shooting off. Wind came rushing in the windows as the cab sped past stores on both sides. Kurt hung on tight. It was a crazy ride. The cabman was weaving in and out of traffic. Kurt thought they might crash. Part of him was frightened, but part of him found driving at that speed exciting. It was like riding in a race car. "Do you have a license to drive?" Kurt called to the driver. "Yes, all cab drivers must have a license," the driver said. "And they teach you to drive like this?" No, said the driver. "It takes years and years of driving to become an expert like me." They made it safely. Kim paid the driver and gave him a tip. She and Kurt went in to see their mom. So now page 112, 112. Mrs. Gunter gave Kim a big hug. Kurt snuck in between them so he could be part of the hug too. Then Kim told her mom how they had spent the day. Kim listed the places they had visited. She explained what had happened with Tom and Beth, with Alberto at the corner market, with Dwight the man of light, with Hester the florist, and at last with Mr. Fremont. She told her mom how she had used math to help her get the job at the grocery. By the end of the story, Mrs. Gunter was beaming. "You see," she said, "I told you math would help you out one day. You thought I was crazy." "You were right," said Kim. "Mr. Fremont was really impressed that I could add up the tally without the cash register and also add in the sales tax." "Good for you," said her mom. "I'm so proud of you." Next page, 114. "I never dreamed I would have a job in a grocery," added Kim, "but I think it's going to be a good job for me." "It may not be the job of your dreams," said her mom, "but it's a job. The next job you get can be better, and the next one can be even better. If you study hard in college, you will have the chance to get the job of your dreams someday. Until then, just do a good job and save as much of your paycheck as you can." "I will," said Kim. "Let's do something fun," said Kurt. "I know," said their mom. "Let's celebrate Kim's new job by getting some subs and snacks and going down to Battery Park for a picnic. Are you too hungry for dinner?" "You bet," said Kurt. Next page is 116. "This is crazy," Kim said. "Mom, all day, Kurt ate and ate. Every time I got him a snack, I said, 'That's the end of that,' but he was still hungry." "Well, he's a strong growing child," said Mrs. Gunter, "and he was busy all day." "That's right," said Kurt. They went to a sub shop nearby. Mrs. Gunter ordered a sub for each of them, plus some snacks and drinks. Then Mrs. Gunter hailed a cab. The three of them got in. The cab took them down the West Side Highway. It dropped them off in Battery Park on the south end of Manhattan. So that is the end of the visit chapter, which starts on page 108. So we start here with Manhattan, which is a place in America. So I imagine that's been explained before as well. So it's just a place in America. And then a word further down the page 108, the word screeched. So a yellow cab screeched to a stop at the side of the street. Kurt and Kim hopped in. Screeched means that he was driving so quickly that when he hit the brakes to stop, the tyres made a noise on the road. So he was driving so quickly that when he hit the brakes to stop, it made a noise. So he might have skidded. So the screeching comes from the how quickly he stopped. So the yellow cab screeched to a stop. That's because he was going so fast to begin with. And then we have the word shooting, and this is at the bottom of page 108. Now in this context, it means, so it says the cab went shooting off. So in this context, it means very quickly. So the cab driver drove very, very, very quickly. So if he's shooting off, he set off very quickly. He sped, and he set off. Probably he's speeding. He's definitely going over the speed limit, which is not allowed. Cab is just an American taxi. So they say cab, we say taxi. It's just the same thing, really. Okay, yeah, I think that's it for that page. So now we are on page 110. So the very top of page 110, it says, Kurt hung on tight. It was a crazy ride. Crazy means mad, all over the place. He wasn't expecting that to happen. He wasn't expecting it to be so everywhere. Maybe he was even flung from side to side as the cab went weaving in and out of cars and things. It was, yeah, it was, so crazy means mad. So he was finding it really difficult to comprehend maybe the speed that the car was going, the weaving, things like that. And it was crazy because it was dangerous as well, because that's not safe driving, that's dangerous driving. That's why it was crazy. It was unexpected, it was unusual. It was unusual for a cab driver to drive so dangerously. And then, page 110, do you have a license to drive? Kurt called to the driver. A license is a permit that a person has to have to drive a car. So the cab driver would have had to take a special driving test, take lessons, take a driving test in order to get his driving license. because you can't be a cab driver if you can't drive. So it's the permit from an authority to drive a car. Without a license, it's illegal to drive a car without a driving license. You need to pass a test in order to prove that you can drive safely. And if you can't, and if you don't have that proof, that card that says I can drive, then you're driving illegally. And that's why he says, yes, all cab drivers must have a license, the driver said. Excuse me. All cab drivers must have a license because they need that proof that they can drive safely, that they can drive well. Okay. Then at the bottom of page 110, tip. And it's the sentence, they made it safely. Kim paid the driver and gave him a tip. This is extra money on top of the bill. So if you think your driver has been nice, has been safe, has been chatty, has been doing his job or her job very well, sorry, then you might want to give them a little bit of extra money just to help them. It doesn't just have to be for taxi drivers, it can be for waitresses, anything like that, delivery people that you might want to just give extra money to on top of the bill. So if it was, I don't know, £3 or in this case $3 for the cab drive, then she might give him $4 instead, just an extra dollar just to help him along his way. There we go. Then we are now on page 112, and for the word snuck. So Mrs. Gunter gave Kim a big hug. Kurt snuck in between them so he could be part of the hug too. So snuck is the past tense of sneak. Sorry. And it means that Kurt was quiet, he wasn't being noticed. So if he snuck in between them, he was doing it really quietly. He was trying to do it without being noticed. So he's trying to do it well, sneakily. So that's what snuck is. It's the past tense of sneaky or sneak. So if you sneak, you're quiet, you're not being noticed, you're not being looked at, you're not attracting attention. And that was Kurt when he joined the hug. Okay. And then we have page 114 for the word paycheck. So if you see that big paragraph in the middle of the page, it's at the bottom, at the end of that paragraph. So it says, until then, just do a good job and save as much as your paycheck as you can. That is what Kim's mom is giving to her as advice. And a paycheck is the salary or the wages that are given to an employee for the work that they do. So now that Kim has this job in the grocery store, she will be getting paid for the work that she's doing, and she might be getting paid monthly. So a paycheck will come to her, which is the money that she is given for the job she's doing. And so the mom is giving her advice to save as much of that money as she possibly can for her future. Okay. And then we have page 116. About halfway down, it says they went to a sub shop nearby. Sub means sandwich in America. So if they have a sub, they have a sandwich. So, you know, Subway that we have here in the UK, well, they have it too. But they call their sandwiches subs. So just a different use of the word, really. And then again on page 116, the sentence, then Mrs. Gunter hailed a cab. Hailed means, in this context, to call out to someone to catch their attention. So she's trying to catch the taxi driver's attention. A lot of them put their hand out while they're waiting for a taxi, just so they don't go straight past. They know that somebody is wanting to get in. So they put their hand out, just be like, oh yeah, I want a taxi, just to let them know that that's what they want, and then they'll pull over at the side of the road and pick you up. That's what hailed means, to call out to someone to catch their attention. To call out to someone to catch their attention. And I've said that a cab is a taxi. Okay, now we have the final chapter of this job hunt book. Can't believe it. And it starts on page 118, and it's called Battery Park. As the sun went down, Mrs. Gunter, Kim and Kurt had a picnic in Battery Park. Kim was all set to relax. She was tired after her long day of job hunting. After the picnic, Kurt went to the railing and pointed at the Statue of Liberty. Why is the Statue of Liberty holding up an ice cream cone? He asked. Kim smiled. Kurt, that's not an ice cream cone, it's a torch. A torch is a stick with a fire on one end. Sorry, what's a torch? A torch is a stick with fire on one end, said Kim. Fire is cool, said Kurt. A torch is what they used in the olden days, when there were no lights, Mrs. Gunter explained. I'll bet Dwight, the man of light, sells torches, said Kurt. Kim smiled. And since it's Dwight, she said, I'll bet the price is right. Mrs. Gunter explained, the Statue of Liberty was given to the United States by France. You mean it was a gift? Kurt asked. Mrs. Gunter nodded. Man, he said, that's one big present. They must have needed a big box to gift wrap it. I think they sent it over here in parts and then welded the parts back together to make the statue. Welding is cool, said Kurt. There are cooler things in life than welding, said Mrs. Gunter. Like what? Said Kurt. Next page is 122. Like being free, said Mrs. Gunter. People here in the United States are free. Mr. Fremont is free to hire Kim or not hire her, and Kim is free to take the job he offers her or not. Later on, if Kim decides to try and find a different job, she is free to do it. If we decide to pack up our stuff and leave Brooklyn, we are free to do it. Also, we are free to say what we feel like saying. That's what liberty means. It means being free to do what you wish, say what you wish, and think what you wish. Do you understand? Kurt nodded. Mrs. Gunter went on. The Statue of Liberty reminds us that we are free. It reminds us that liberty is a priceless thing. Kurt looked back at the Statue of Liberty. He was thinking of all the things he was free to be when he got bigger. A baseball player, a shop owner, a banker, a baker, a race car driver, a spaceship driver. Page 124 now, the last part. I see what you mean, he said. Liberty is even cooler than welding. Kurt helped Kim and his mom clean up the picnic. They tossed their trash into a trash can. Then they went to the subway stop to catch a train back to Brooklyn. That's the end of the chapter and the end of the book. I can't believe it. Wow. So, let's just go through the last few tricky words. So it's the chapter starts on page 118, Battery Park. So I've put this word in here just in case you've never heard of it. The word picnic, and it's the first little bit, the first line on page 118. So as the sun went down, Mrs. Gunter, Kim and Kurt had a picnic in Battery Park. A picnic is a packed meal which is eaten outdoors. You might put a blanket on the floor and sit there eating your sandwiches, your cakes, your crisps, your biscuits, your fruit on a blanket on the grass, or you might sit on a picnic bench. There's no rule. It's just you eating your food outdoors together. And then the Statue of Liberty, just in case you're not sure where it is, it's a statue in New York. It's in New York, in America. If I think it would be a good idea if you could maybe look up a picture of it, just so you can understand what I'm talking about. A very, very important statue for the Americans especially, and a very beautiful statue. So if you get the chance, if you're able, try and look up the Statue of Liberty just so you can get a picture of it in your head. And then we have the word welded. And this is on page 120. It's near the bottom. It's in the sentence. I think they sent it over here in parts and then welded the parts back together to make the statue. Welding is when you join together pieces of metal by heating them to the point where they melt, where parts of them melt, and then you press them together so they join, and then when they cool down, that's the position that they cool in, so they end up sticking together. So they heat the metal parts up to a really high temperature to the point where they start to melt. They put the metal parts together, and when they cool in that particular formation, so they'll cool sticking together. Then we have page 122, the word priceless. So the sentence is, Mrs. Gunter went on, the Statue of Liberty reminds us that we are free. It reminds us that liberty is a priceless thing. So priceless means that something is so precious, you can't possibly put a value on it. You can't buy liberty. You can't buy freedom. You can't say, the freedom to do whatever you want is worth this much money. You just physically can't. It is that precious to have freedom and liberty that you just physically cannot put a price on it. It is that precious. It's that important. So that's what that means. And then we have the very last page 124, tossed. So tossed in this sense means threw. So that because it says they tossed their trash into a trash can. So they threw their trash into a trash can. They just threw it in. And then trash is the American word for rubbish. So if they've got bits of foil left over from their picnic, sandwich wrappers, crisp packets, that's all trash that they threw into the bin or the trash can. Perfect. So that's all the tricky words. So I thought I'd just come up with a few questions just to ask you now, just to check your understanding of the book. They're not marked or anything like that. It's just for your benefit, really. And the first question I have here is, and this is from all 4 chapters that I've just been going through today, so it's not from one particular chapter. It's just a random selection of questions. When Mr. Fremont was testing Kim, what items did he choose for her to tally up? Now, just to guide you to the correct page, it's page 100. So if you'd like to go to page 100 and see if you can find the answer to that question. When Mr. Fremont was testing Kim, what items did he choose for her to tally up? Page 100. So there are 3 answers. If you can get all 3, that's fab. If you can get 1 or 2, that's still great. However many you can get, try and see if you can do it. When Mr. Fremont was testing Kim, what items did he choose for her to tally up? Just give you a couple more minutes to think of that. Okay, if you still haven't found it, maybe you could pause the video and then try and find it and then see if you're right. The answers are a jar of peanut butter, a bag of cookies, and a key lime pie. Jar of peanut butter, bag of cookies, key lime pie. Well done to anyone who got any number of those three. Next question. How much did Mr. Fremont give Kim for her time? This is page 106. How much did Mr. Fremont give Kim for her time? Should be fairly straightforward. The answer is 20 bucks or $20, whichever. Both of those are correct. That is the answer there. And then the next question. How did their mother celebrate with them? This is page 114, so we're moving through a bit quickly now. So how did their mom celebrate with them? Because Kim got her job, they were all very excited. Their mom was very excited. So how did their mom celebrate with them for Kim getting a job? Page 114. How did their mom celebrate with them for Kim getting a job? A few more seconds and then I'll give you the answer. Okay, so she got them both Kim and Kurt, subs or sandwiches, snacks, drinks, and they went down to Battery Park for a picnic. Sounds lovely, doesn't it? So that's how she celebrated with Kim for her getting a job. She got them subs, snacks, drinks, and then they went down to Battery Park for a picnic. And then the last question, page 120, is who gave the United States the Statue of Liberty? Who gave the United States the Statue of Liberty? Page 120. Because Mrs. Gunter was educating Kurt about the Statue of Liberty and she mentions who gave the US the Statue of Liberty. So if you could just find that answer. A few more seconds and then I'll give you the answer. France. France gave the US the Statue of Liberty as a gift. Well done to everyone who followed that through today. They weren't easy chapters. Well done if you got the questions correct. Well done if you got some of it correct. Well done for watching this. I hope it really helped. Unfortunately, that's the end of this book. That's the end of the Job Hunt book. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. It's been really fun. We'll be back next week with a different book. So please join us. And please, everyone, stay safe, stay home, stay safe. and thank you for watching. Bye.